Hi there, I'm Christian Brim. Welcome to Core Focus, where we give you one breakthrough business idea for your small business in less than 5 minutes. My guest today is Toni Ragsdale from Ragsdale & Associates. Toni, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Well, thanks. For those of you who don't know Toni, Toni Ragsdale has been involved in the business brokerage industry since 1982. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the Iowa State University, and is a former business owner herself. She is also a licensed Oklahoma real estate sales associate. The subject today is selling your business, and the rules are simple. We have 5 minutes for the interview, and when the countdown timer reaches 0 and the buzzer goes off, the interview is cut whether you are in full flight or mid-sentence. Toni, do you accept the challenge?
I accept.
Great. Your time starts now. What should I, as the business owner, consider prior to selling a small business?
Well, number one, you should consider prior to selling the business. And sometimes outside events will cause that to come up more quickly than they had anticipated, and they're not prepared. Normally, business owners are selling for an internally compelling reason, such as an illness or retirement or divorce or partnership dispute, or they're simply tired and that's the end. They don't want to own the business any longer. But the reason to be prepared early is that if we reverse engineer this and figure out, well, who's our audience? Who will the buyer be? That buyer is looking for a few things. One would be the dollar amount of annual discretionary earnings that the buyer can tap into, because historically it's been there for the seller. Number two is, how long has that been true? So we want to have 3 years of books and records, 3 years of company tax returns, balance sheets, profit and loss statements. And the indicator here is that the best way to determine the next 12 months of ownership under a new owner is to predicate that on the last 12 months of ownership for the seller.
Got it. So what will I need to do? Let's say I've decided I'm going to retire. What's the next step in selling my business?
Well, what we do is an A to Z coverage as far as services, meaning that we meet with, at no cost nor any obligation, a business owner and help them with pricing, and then explain what the whole process is. Pricing is, of course, important to everybody, documenting where we got that pricing from, making sure that the lease is transferable, and any other agreements, perhaps it's a franchise, et cetera, that needs to be transferred. And then we start the marketing process in a very confidential way.
And so what does that business sale process look like?
It had been most recently that it was 10 months nationally for a business to sell. And just in the last day or two, we received a newsletter that it's now 5.6 months for those businesses that did sell for them to sell. And so we prepare the seller to know that. We pre-qualify people who inquire about the particular ads, again, confidential ads, to find out if that is a qualified prospect for the business, and then introduce the two parties as far as showing the business, walking the buyer through the books and records, contacting the landlord, et cetera.
What is the likelihood that a business owner is going to get all cash at closing from the sale?
Really good question. I mean, that is such an important point. What we bought in 1982 is a franchise, and they, in fact, 90 plus years earlier, invented this entire industry of selling businesses. Based on that, what you're about to hear is true, despite what city, state, economy, decade that we're talking about. If you take 100 businesses, 5 of them will be all cash, 25 will be bank financed, and 70% of them will be seller financed, but it's with a very significant down payment.
And so how does that owner carry, if you will, carrying the note, how does that affect the price?
The price actually would go up, because an all cash price, there's a heavy discount for all cash because all the money is due at one point. But if you'll allow them to make a down payment, and by the way, buyers really like this because it's a vote of confidence that the seller believes long-term in the viability of that business. And then the seller carries that note, typically 5.75% interest for 7 years. He picks up a lot in the interest, in addition to the price being a bit higher, even initially before they start to pay the note.
One last question. Business owners like to pay little tax, and that means that they don't show much on the bottom line sometimes. How does that affect the pricing of the business or the marketability of it?
I run into that a lot, and it can be handled, but the bottom line on that is it depends on the buyer and their willingness to believe what we're telling them. Ultimately, it's a bit of a damage to the seller, because if not all of the business is showing up in its books and records, then we have to be able to walk the buyer through that. And it really depends on a case-by-case example, but it is far better if these are clean, clear, and solid books representing the business.
That's great, Toni. Our time's up. Now, where can people go to get more information or resources on selling their business?
Ragsdale and Associates, or go to bizbuysell/Ragsdale Biz. And Ragsdale is Ragsdale.
Great, Toni. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.